So the panelists, there are three panelists in this session. One Professor Lyndon Olof. So the Lyndon Olof, he is the director of research and doctoral programs at the World Maritime University, and he is a professor of marine environmental management, a Nippon chair. He is also the professor of coastal management at the Linnaeus University in Sweden. He has over 30 years of research and teaching experience on subjects related to marine science and environmental management, the impact of climate change, and the environmental impact of disaster and conflicts. He has been involved in lecturing, mentoring, and supervising postgraduate students worldwide. He has been leading research initiatives around the world in the Arabian Gulf, Gulf of Mexico, Niger Delta, East Africa, and Indian Ocean Island. On behalf of all who gathered, I invite Professor Lyndon Olof to the dais, and the second panelist, Professor Natarajan R. He is a former chairman, All India Council for Technical Education India, and Professor Natarajan obtained his B degree in mechanical engineering from the University Visvesvaraya College of Engineering of the Mysore University, ME degree, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and the MSc and PhD, University of Waterloo, Canada. He has worked as the National Research Council Fellow in Canada and as a Humboldt Research Fellow in Germany. He served as the director of the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, from 1995 to 2001. He was the vice president of the Indian National Academy of Engineering during 2002 and 6, and the chairman of the Research Council of the Central Fuel Research Institute, Dhanbad, during 1995-2005. He is currently the chairman of the board for IT Education Standards of Karnataka and the co-chairman of the Engineering Education Forum of the Indian National Academy of Engineering. On behalf of all who gathered and Kerala State Higher Education Council, I welcome you, sir. And so Professor Gangan Prathaban, he is the scientist and scientist of National Institute of Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, Thiruvananthapuram. Dr. Gangan Prathaban has joined at CSIR, NIST, as Outstanding Scientist on 16th August 2013. He earned his BTech in 74 and PhD in 1978, degrees in Aeronautical Engineering from IIT Madras. He has also pursued a parallel interest in this research evaluation, bibliometrics, and scientometrics, and application of the physical and mathematical insights for the research assessment. In recent years, he has proposed the thermodynamics basis of bibliometric sequence, which can lead to the better indicators of the research evaluation, like the p-index and the EEE sequence. He has served at many premier institutions in India, like the CSIR, NIL, CSIR, CMMA, CS, CUSAT, and CSIR, NISCAIR. Dr. Pratap made significant contributions in nonlinear structural mechanics. His latest research involved proposing quantitative approaches to pressing problems of a sociological nature. He has over 400 scientific and technical reports, of which over 100 have appeared in SCI journals. Dr. Pratap was awarded the SS Bhatnagar Prize in 1990 on behalf of Kerala State Higher Education Council, and all who gathered. I welcome you, sir, on this session. See, our session is started with the panelist from Professor Olof Linton. I invite Olof Linton to present.
To stand in front of you and be able to address you today. I have been, as the chairman just said, I've been working in the Indian Ocean quite a lot and with India with Indian institutions, but I'm not at all in the position of being able to advise directly on specific national issues, and I hope other panel, but I'm sure the other panelists are much better on that topic than I am. I will give some views on these topics from the perspective of my own institution, where I am busy right now, the World Maritime University, which is a small, highly specialized university. And that might give you some food for thought, some ideas regarding on this larger question of how to be competitive in the educational world in today and tomorrow. I will try to respond to after that. I will present my own institution a little bit and how we look at this issue. Then I will talk a little bit about, I will try to respond to the first question that has been raised on the global issues here. Then I will take a step back and look a little bit on the historical situation, I mean, really a long perspective, how universities have been meeting the challenges of society and or of life, and what and I think that sort of perspective gives us certainly gives me at least quite a few ideas of how a university should meet a modern university should meet the challenges of the future. And finally, I will try to answer some of the questions about the ranking systems related to online universities. My own university, the World Maritime University, it's a mouthful it's a big name. It's a very small university. We have a staff of about 50, 60 faculty, and we have an intake. We are a postgraduate institution. We were started by the UN, United Nations Maritime Organization in 1983. So we've been in operation for 30 years now. We have an intake of about 100 master's students every year, and a couple of PhDs, maybe 5 to 10 PhDs. No, not 10, maybe rather 5 than 10. And so we are highly selective in what we do. We specialize in, or our focus is the issues related to global trade on the sea, shipping. There are, as I'm sure you have some idea of at least, there are a number of rules and regulations that makes it possible for ships to travel from one country to another, for ships to carry goods from one country to another, ships that are registered that are owned by an owner, maybe part owned by several owners. It is registered in one country. It may be insured in another country. The cargo may be owned by 200 or 500 or 1,000 different owners in different countries. The ship moves from a completely national sort of jurisdiction via several intermediate jurisdictions, territorial from the internal waters, which is entirely national, to a territorial zone where certain intermediate rules start to take place, and then into another zone, which is a contiguous zone, and then to the EEZ, exclusive economic zone, and then out into international waters. And then it enters into another country, and go through all these zones. And there are regulations for all this. There are regulations that regulates what determines how the ship can operate, what the captain can, what decisions he can make, and what decisions he has to ask for land for, and so on. And the complexity of this is quite amazing when you start to look at it. And then, in addition, when you have additional complications, when you have an emergency, when you have a shipwreck or a collision, or you have piracy, the implications are tremendous. Anyway, these are my university is teaching the background to the conventions that regulates this. There are about 50 or to 60 international conventions that regulates safety, security, environmental aspects of shipping, and to some extent also technical aspects related to fuel efficiency and so on. That has become a very important issue in recent years. We take in about 100 students every year, as I said, and these students go through a master's program, which is 1.5 years long. They come from all countries in the world. We have at present had students from 170 countries. They are basically, the classroom is full of students from all over the world. What we can say more is that the average age of these students is older than normal students, 34, 35 years old. They are all professionals. They all have a background. They all have a basic degree. They are all lawyers or economists, or have an engineering background or a science background or a Coast Guard background, for that matter. Our faculty to student to staff ratio is 1:6, which we are proud of, very proud of. Very few universities in the world can meet that level. This with international branches, with branching out into other parts of the world, we have been looking into. We have been doing it to some extent. We have 2 branches in China because we have been overwhelmed with applications from students from China, so that we have set up a branch of World Maritime University at the Shanghai Maritime Academy, where there are 20,000 students studying maritime issues. Yet there is a need for our program at the Shanghai Maritime Academy. And I think that is a bit telling. We have been also requested to set up branches in a number of other places. We have been been holding back. And I think some of the stories that, or some of the information we got from Stella here earlier, I mean, these are things we have gone through, things we have considered, and therefore we have been a bit hesitant. The trends we see today is that we have an oversubscription of students. We have a large number of students for every space we have, every opportunity we have. So this is expanding. This seems to expand every year. We see the research portfolio we are running is growing also almost exponentially, and we have difficulties in coping, in fact, with all the research opportunities that we are invited to, because that's in fact the situation to a large extent. We also see an interesting trend. There are more and more self-funded students, meaning they are not donor dependent. We were set up originally by the UN because to meet the problems of developing countries, to be able to understand the international processes in the shipping sector. And we see now, so originally we were totally donor dependent in terms of scholarships for students from underdeveloped countries. Now we've seen the last 5+ years that the number of students that are funded by their own countries, and that the country and countries that are from really sort of poor conditions, those numbers are increasing. Countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone are funding their own students in our university. As an example, a number of very poor African countries are funding their own students. So we are an example of a very specialized university. We are targeting a sector which is of global nature, and we are targeting the particular issues of this sector with capacity building and research. And I think this is a response, at least to some institutions, that perhaps also in India, that becoming specialized highly, trying to meet the demands of the sector you are responding to, can be an opening to. I mean, we are ranked, of course, also in these ranking systems. We are not highly ranked because we are so small. But yet we have no problem at all in getting students, maintaining students, and maintaining our operations. So I think that's something that. That was my response to then question 1, uniqueness, direct relevance. And we see we have some of these specialized business schools around the world that are very small and that do not rank at all or are low ranked in the ranking systems, but are doing excellent, having excellent programs and have no problem at all in getting students. So I think we should look beyond world rankings and identify uniqueness, and that may be a response at least to some institutions. Then I want to take this step back and look at some inherent historical problems in universities. You know, we have, I don't know when the first university in India was started, but it was probably many hundred years ago.
1857.
Sorry?
1857.
1857, that's recent. Okay, good, thank you. I make note of that. But the oldest university in Europe is University of Bologna, which is almost 1,000 years old. The university next to where I grew up is University of Uppsala, which is over 600 years old. When we look at these universities and the major universities, the big universities around in Europe, what did they do during most of the time? During most of their lifetime? Well, they educated priests. This is what they did. We can think of several hundred years in Europe during the Middle Ages. The university's output were primarily priests. Did the society really need all those priests? I don't know. But we call it the Dark Middle Ages, and I think maybe the universities did not contribute to solving the problems of the Dark Middle Ages, really. And this, when industrialization set in the early 1800s, the society needed people with technological skills, to feed the people, agricultural skills. And the old universities resisted. And a new generation of universities, that's when most of the universities in Europe started, during the 1800s, to respond to the needs of society. The old universities, the universities that already were 500, 600, 700 years old, they resisted as long as they could to the change. Finally, they also started changes. What do we see now? What is the trend now? Well, since 50 years, we have seen the need for more sustainable development, greener development. We see the need for a society, a low-carbon society, a society where resources are important, where and how many universities are really responding to this question? The quest to educate students that can deal with more than one issue at a time. I think what we see around us is still very traditional teaching. Engineers come out without a clue about ecology and about social issues. Economists come out and they have not a clue about resources, about limitations of growth, etc. And I think this is a real big issue now. So few institutions have taken up the challenges. That has been pointed out since the Stockholm Conference, via all these environmental conferences, Environment and Development Conference, that was emphasized by Rio Plus 20 a couple of years ago, that what society needs is multidisciplinarity, ability of the experts to deal with the complexities of today's world. I think the universities are lagging behind, generally lagging behind. Well, particularly, I mean, in science, I think there has been real progress. We have a lot of information. We know a lot about what the limits of life is on this planet, about the problems related to basic needs of water and air and climate change and so on. But the economists that are graduating from our schools, they are still focusing on growth of GDP as the only measure of development, of shareholder value, of extraction of natural resources, of linear production systems, of short-life products for sale, etc. There is we need a response from the universities to these challenges, and we see it in far too cases in my mind. All right. If I should try to respond to some of the remaining questions about ranking, I think the second question, I don't remember how it was worded, but my comment there is, without research, just teaching will be difficult to, I mean, a university without teaching is something else than an online university. A university without research is something different from an online university, and therefore there has to be different ranking systems, I think. A ranking system for universities where serious research is carried out, and another for purely online education. I think this with crowd ranking, I think the quality issues there is important. What is the quality of the input here? There must be quite a lot of room for error in this crowd ranking. At least I'm not sure in fact, of the definition of crowd ranking, but when I have tried to find out the definition, I feel that there is a lot of room for errors there. Multiple voting, people, you can vote any time, and you can. So that's I have problems with that one. Also, this with how will, in a virtual setting, how will faculty be able to interact with the students. There has to be work done here to develop the links so that you can overcome the problem of not meeting the students, not ever perhaps meeting the students. There are pedagogical issues, quality of the teaching, and there are ethical issues. There are issues with copywriting and so on, which I think are quite complicated and has to be dealt with in that context. Anyway, that's was my final words. Thank you so much.
Important at the global level, the national level, and the state level. They indeed stimulate critical thought, and I have sent my written responses to them separately, but I'm going to focus now on world-class universities and a little bit about globalization. I believe that the people of the world are divided into two parts. They are not equal parts. One set believes in global rankings, and the other set distrusts and does not believe in global rankings. In our own country, many of our higher technological institutions, as Professor Gnanam is fond of saying, they did not believe in these rankings for the past 5 years or 6 years. But editorials were written, and if you remember the first Shanghai rankings, Indian Institute of Science was ranked about 250 or something, still not in the top 100. And P. Chidambaram was the finance minister. He announced a grant of 100 crores. At that time, it was a large amount of money. And he said, let us put in some money, funding for research so that this institution, which is the top one in the country, can move up. I believe the money came 2 years later. This is for your information. At the moment, MHRD has taken serious view of this. They have written letters to the directors of the IIT saying, you guys have to smarten up. And there is a committee headed by the Secretary Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Vijayaraghavan, and it has about 15 members or so. I am one of the members. Nigvekar is another member. Dr. Shivaram, former director of NCL, is a member. The idea is to drive research performance. So we have had our first meeting, nothing much has come about. We have to think outside the box in order to do this. So let me clarify a few issues about world-class universities. I find that whenever I speak, there's a whole lot of mistrust about it. And those who do well, obviously, in any kind of ranking, they will think highly of these rankings, and those who don't do well, they will condemn it. Okay. The very first global ranking was the Shanghai rankings of the top 500 world-class universities. It was announced in 2003, 10 years ago. The term world-class has generated a great deal of discussion and controversy. What does it mean? It seems to be a catchphrase, a catch-all phrase. Put simply, it means best in class. Industry seems to understand this much better. World's best, role models, benchmark institutions. So these are the different terms that should come to your mind. Why should any Indian university appear in the top 100? I will turn back and ask, why should India win Olympic gold medals? Why should we have chess champions? Why should we have hockey champions? Because it is reputation, prestige. It affects all other aspects of globalization. In sports, it means Olympics. In soccer and cricket, it means the World Cup. In business, the Fortune 500 companies. In tennis, the Grand Slam. Thus, it represents a peak level of excellence in the particular sector of endeavor and is widely accepted worldwide. These perceptions continue to persist. There is a lot of consensus about world-class universities, WCUs they're called. It's a multi-dimensional concept. It's not only one criterion. Like beauty, it lies in the eyes of the beholder. It is abstract, it is subjective in some sense. It is largely a matter of perception. It's a composite index containing a number of factors. I'll talk about them in a minute. Please remember that world-class or excellence is neither uniform across all components of the institution nor steady over time. For quite some time now, if you asked anybody which is the world's best university, the answer would be Harvard. It does not mean that every institution, every professor, every student in that institution is world-class. It is a composite index. Let us remember that. It is not steady with time. If some good faculty members leave that institution, the quality will come down. The rankings will depend upon who does the ranking. There are three major players now. What parameters are used, what weighting factors are used for each parameter, and the spectrum of stakeholders. I'll give you the opinions of three opinion makers about world-class universities. Altbach, Philip Altbach, is an India watcher. He writes a lot of articles about India, many of them good, some of them highly critical. He says, ranking among the foremost in the world of an international standard of excellence. Foremost and excellence are things that you should make a note of. Amartya Sen has said, a world-class university is one that is recognized across the world as a center of excellence in terms of research and in terms of teaching. The two are often interrelated. Professor Gray of Caltech has said, I think a world-class university requires students and professors who are highly motivated, professors who are not only great at research, but great teachers. The main ingredients are great research and great teaching. Teaching and research cannot be separated. They are two sides of the same coin. You can have teaching-only institutions in the initial stages, but if you want your reputation to be enhanced, you should be a research institution. Now let me quickly go through the criteria employed in the three global rankings. They are very important to see. If you look at the top 100 or top 10 institutions in the three rankings year after year, they are not the same, they are not identical. But in the top 500, I believe, the top 200 appear in all the three lists. There is some consistency, but at the same time, some differences. Shanghai rankings, quality of education, determined by the alumni of an association winning Nobel Prizes in field medals, 10%, quality of faculty, staff of the institution winning Nobel Prizes and field medals. Why Nobel Prizes and field medals? Shanghai rankings were launched in China essentially to benchmark their institutions. And they said it should be highly objective. Nobody should be able to question what we are saying. So what is the best performance in science? It is Nobel Prize. What is the best performance in mathematics? It is the field medal. Therefore, nobody can question their decisions. Then research output, papers indexed in, papers published in Nature and Science. Nature is published in the UK, Science in the US. Why Nature and Science? Because for a long time, the impact factors of these journals are much higher than the impact factors in other journals. The second one is Times Higher Education Rankings. It is called THE rankings now. Teaching and the learning environment, 30%. Research, volume, income, and reputation, 30%. Citations, industry income, and international mixed staff and students, 5%. Some of our Indian institutions, they say there is too much weighting for international students and faculty. Therefore, we are not in it. We don't have international students and faculty. But how much is it? 5%. In the 95%, can we not compete? Then QS, Quacquarelli-Simons, they used to assist Times Higher Education. Now they are independent. The World University Rankings 2010, if you take for instance, academic reputation is 40%. So it is perception. Employer reputation, 10%, student-faculty ratio as a proxy for the interaction between the students and the faculty and the quality of teaching, citations, and international faculty, 5%, international students, 5%, adds to about 10%. They found that there are not many Asian institutions in the World University Rankings, therefore they have a separate set of Asian University Rankings. The methodology is slightly different. I won't go into the details. Over the last year, QS started ranking BRICS institutions, and THC started ranking BRICS and emerging economies institutions, the top 50, for example. There's a number of Indian institutions in these rankings because it's only a combination of 5 countries. Now, there are some comments about ARW, Academic Ranking of World Universities, the Shanghai Rankings, and THC. Both of them are biased towards English-speaking countries. So our French professor need not feel bad because they are biased towards English-speaking countries. The publication bias towards English and dominance of US academic journals and international reputation or orientation is also limited by the teaching language of a university. The definition of what makes a world-class university is highly subjective. However, there is widespread agreement that it must have reputation and prestige. There is a blog on the internet which says there is far too much nonsense spouted regarding the phrase world class. It is overused and over